Hey, everybody, welcome to Crackpot, the podcast where each and every week we dive into a different conspiracy theory and we discuss the merits or the demerits of each. We're your hosts. I'm Tim.
And I'm Zach.
Hello, Zach.
Back at it, buddy.
Welcome back.
It's September-ish.
Yeah.
It's fall-ish. It's still super hot at time of recording.
Yes, it's like 95, but the leaves are turning.
The good thing is, like, the air temp's 95, but the heat index is like 120.
Yes,
so
that's true.
You know, kind of depending on how you think about it, look at the situation. It's like, well, it's not that bad.
I always wanted to live in the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
But here we go. I don't have to. I don't have to move.
You're in the Minnesota Keys as far as I'm concerned here.
Heck yeah, dude.
Well, speaking about different regions of the United States... Thank you.
Fantastic transition.
Thanks
for coming to that workshop on transitions, by the way. That was good.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes.
I can tell, man.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Practiced a few in my spare time. You got to work on it, though.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, speaking of different regions around the United States, folks, I tell you what. I will tell you what.
Tell you what.
We have both come a long ways in our respective journeys when it comes to some of these topics. Let me give you an example here. Yeah. Tim, staunchly anti-ghost, 7, 8 years ago?
Very much.
Now pro-ghost. 100%. You are on the ghost ticket.
I'm on the ghost train?
Yeah, you're riding the ghost train.
Yeah, more than I used to be. Absolutely, yes.
I was squarely anti-cryptid.
Yes.
And now I'm, as has been discussed, literally a big cryptid guy.
You're the cryptid guy.
It's happening. I'm gonna. It's like Michael J. Fox turning into Teen Wolf here all of a sudden.
Literally,
on the
literally
camera.
and figuratively.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great, guys. Go back and listen to season 1. Literally in the bylaws, as we read them out loud during one of our episodes, it stated we cannot do Bigfoot episodes.
That was the. We should have really played that out longer because I really was convinced we cannot do a Bigfoot show.
Yeah. We'll lose all of our credibility.
Yeah, I was like, we're not going to do it. Cryptids are stupid. Okay. But, all right.
Yeah. So walk us through the journey here.
I can't say definitively that I really believe in cryptids. However, there's a lot of weird stuff out there.
Yeah.
And when I think about what are the possibilities, well, either some of these sightings are just complete hoaxes. They're made up.
Yep.
So that's category A. Category B, a flight of fancy.
And what would that be?
Well, just basically your eyes playing tricks on you, or maybe you're into something and you just believe it inherently. And
okay, so not even would that be like a misidentified animal?
Could be. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So just a mistake.
A mistake.
Yep.
Which leads us to category C.
Okay.
Maybe they're real.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds dumb. I know, I don't know what to say. I can't sit here and be like, yeah, I believe in cryptids. I really don't. However, I got a book here that I'm drawing from today, and it is called American Monsters, A History of Monster Lore, Legends, and Sightings in America by Linda S. Godfrey. Really, really good book. Legitimately good book.
Yeah, okay.
Just super interesting. It's kind of a survey course in American monsters, which might surprise you based on the title. She gets really into it, and she's not pushing anything, but she's just, again, it's like a survey course in American cryptids, and I drew out some of my favorites here. There's still a ton more that she's talking about. But I get back to this whole thing of I cannot believe that everybody that contributed these stories to this book was lying.
Right.
I cannot believe that there was a misidentification in all these cases. Mm-hmm. Which just kind of leads me to something else, which I'm not really comfortable even saying out loud, which is maybe there's something else going on.
Well, for me, it is hard. It is impossible, actually, to prove a negative. So we can't set out and prove that Bigfoot is not real. Mm-hmm. That doesn't work. So at the end of the day, it's like what you said. Do you take these people at their word, or do you just dismiss every single eyewitness account as completely false or fabricated? And I think what you're saying is maybe the truth is somewhere in between.
Well, I think maybe what has helped me come around in this whole genre Truthfully, Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, interesting.
I really think like probably the hard pivot away from staunchly anti-cryptid 7-8 years ago to like warming up to the idea. Again, I'm not even saying like I believe these are all cryptids. It's just maybe, and it sounds ridiculous, right? Interdimensional Bigfoot. Okay, however, they're seeing weird stuff. Oftentimes it's some form of an animal on places like Skinwalker Ranch, and you've got literal billionaires sinking money into studying this stuff, so I kind of have to think maybe there's something to it.
Exactly. Maybe there is something to it.
So I don't know. So again, not saying I'm 100% all in. I brought here some pretty classic cryptids that I just found like compelling, and also many of them were corroborated by multiple witnesses on different occasions. So it kind of leads you to think like maybe there was really something going on here.
So I'm curious, and maybe you'll get into it, but with the book, is it more of like a regional specific cryptids, like Native American lore in the Southwest versus the Northeast, that sort of thing?
It's actually organized by phylum. Just kidding. I don't know. Animals. Oh, yeah, right. Animals of the sea, animals of the land, animals of the sky. Like she kind of breaks it out that way, which is pretty cool. Yeah. I happen to hit on mostly animals in the sky for this one, so like flying cryptids. But there's a couple other ones here that are mysterious.
Dynamite. Yeah.
It is a really good book, I will say. And plus, it was published in 2014, so there's more recent accounts in here.
Yeah.
Which I liked. But maybe to get the old beak wet here, Mr. Timothy Jerome.
Is that a pun? Beak?
Oh.
Flying cryptids, maybe?
Let me ask you this. We should start close to home.
Let's sink our talons into this, right?
That's right. Thank you.
Spread our wings and figure this out.
Keep going.
No, we're good. We've already lost enough people.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I feel like we should start fairly close to home here. Let me ask you this question, Tim. Have you ever heard of a crappy little state that no one likes called Wisconsin?
Wisconsin. No. No. I refuse to answer that question.
Well, in case those of you at home are wondering, yes, my co-host here is from Wisconsin. And yes, he is the man that puts the sin in Wisconsin, Mr. Timothy Jerome. Anyways, welcome back. Here's what I'll tell you what shocked me. I am not making this up. A good quarter of the cryptids in this book are from Wisconsin.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude.
And it's not just hodags?
No, not even close.
Oh, wow.
I was even thinking like I should do like a spin-off of this as like just Wisconsin ones too, because there are so many. And I thought, hey, you know what? Let's start out with a good old-fashioned Wisconsin cryptid.
I want to hear this.
I'd be curious, if you've heard of this, because it's actually not too far here from the Twin Cities. Didn't occur all that long ago. A couple of sightings here of this one. And that is of the Wisconsin man bat.
Nope.
Are you sure?
This is different than Batman.
Yes, I believe that's trademarked, so they probably had to do a little switcheroo there. Okay, let me tell you about the Wisconsin man bat. Okay. Oh, there are so many jokes I could make about that.
It's actually Wayne Bruce who... I don't know.
Okay, here we go. Let's turn back the clock to the evening of September 26, 2006, around 9:30 p.m. Two men, father and son, they're driving home from a music rehearsal in the city of La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Woo!
Synchronicity, once again. What's up with all of these La Crosse stories? Because if you haven't, check out the Wednesday, Thursday show. It's a Patreon exclusive bonus show.
Yeah.
We had some folks write in. Listener Mitch from La Crosse.
Yeah. It's a weird town. It's a weird town. I haven't spent a lot of time there, but it's a weird town.
It's a cool town because they got the bluffs, but it is very weird. And, in fact, if you've been there or seen pictures of it, I think it helps in thinking with the setting, the time and the place, because it is kind of interesting. So anyways, here we go. Father and son were driving home from a music rehearsal in La Crosse. The son was at the wheel as their pickup truck rolled up the hill on Briggs Road in a rural area between La Crosse and Holmen. They were just passing a private shooting range on the right when a great dark thing flew out of the black night and almost completely blotted out their windshield with its immense wings.
Oh, wow.
As the men braced for a collision, the creature's appearance scared them even more than the prospect of an imminent crash. The dark thing's bat-like wings unfurled to a span wider than the truck. The men estimated it was between 10 and 12 feet, and were attached to a human-sized, furry, roughly bat-like body topped by a canine face, large, sharp fangs, and pointed ears.
Whoa.
The creature's extended arms and legs ended in prominent clawed feet. The men could clearly see its rib cage as it bore down on the truck. It looked hungry, said the older man. His son swerved to avoid the creature, which shot upward at the last second before impact and disappeared. And they said it emitted a piercing shriek. They said both of us had feelings of nausea and we were very afraid.
Whoa.
So,
Okay. I have never heard of that creature. I've never heard of that incident. Did anyone else see it?
That is what I'm getting to next here.
Okay.
And before I get into this potential, I don't know, maybe they're corroborating this, maybe they're not. Before I get into this, let's just talk about kind of the topography or perhaps geography of Lake La Crosse, which is, I mean, it's a city. They have a university there. What is it? Maybe.
Well, it's first and foremost, it's a river town on the Mississippi. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's southwestern Wisconsin, western Wisconsin, and yeah, it's right on the river. And the river has carved these enormous bluffs, and it's kind of a hilly town. I would say probably more bars than churches, that kind of town.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the university. There's some stuff happening, but it's a relatively smaller sized city.
It is, and it's more rural, and it's very close. When you're traveling through, I was just driving through there actually a few weeks ago, and like with the bluffs and the structures of, it's almost like little mountains. I mean, there are places for animals to live.
Yeah, there are. As you're picturing this, I'm like, yep, I can see that. I mean, if you said this was in like Nebraska, I'd be like, no, there's nowhere for a bat to hide, right?
It sounds maybe like I'm saying this for like effect, and I'm not. I'm serious. Like there's a ton of water there. There are these really steep bluffs. People aren't climbing up those bluffs because a lot of them are just like sheer rock faces. If there's a place where a cryptid could live,
it might be La Crosse.
It might be La Crosse.
But you know what that sounds like? It sounds like the Mothman.
I was walking that line for this, a lot of this.
Did it say anything about glowing eyes? Because I know the Mothman had glowing eyes.
Dude, so not in this account.
But so the Mothman, also huge wingspan, right? Also swooped at cars, also emitted a high-pitch kind of screeching sound. So I wonder, like, if these might be similar things?
Dude, I will tell you this much. So there was no big reveal here, but I was eventually going to touch on Mothman, at some point, just as a point of discussion.
Yeah.
There were so many accounts in this book that sounded just straight up like Mothman. Like, really? And I'm like, did we not make the correlation? But
Right.
She actually covered Mothman, but covered these also distinctly differently. So,
Fascinating.
So let's keep going here. Another man reported that he and one of his neighbors had each had a run-in with the man-bat a full year before the father and son did. So in the summer of 2005, between June 15th and the 25th, a man named Bill began to hear what sounded like some sort of large animal traipsing around on his roof at night. People in his neighborhood started to complain that their pets were disappearing.
Whoa.
And Bill lost 2 of his own animals in 1 week. Bill's friend Jim lived only a half a block away. Late one evening that summer, Jim had stepped outside for a bedtime cigarette when something massive swooped into a tree in his backyard.
And this is La Crosse area?
La Crosse.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is like a mile from the last sighting.
Huh.
Now, this is where you'll have to tell me if you think these are the same or different or what, because it does vary a little bit here. The branches of the very large tree shook wildly enough so that he knew it was something bigger than an owl or another normal nocturnal bird. The creature was hidden by thick foliage, and when Jim tried to approach it, the hidden intruder quickly flapped over to Jim's garage, where it ran along the roof before launching itself into the darkness. He never did get a good look at it, but he was extremely freaked out. So some sort of large animal creature thing flew into the trees not far from the other sighting, shook the trees so much he's like, that ain't no owl, probably not an eagle. Goes over to the roof line, runs across it. Okay, so neighbors are freaking out. People are like, what the heck's going on here? They're missing their animals.
Yeah.
His neighbor Bill also observed the same strange shaking tree phenomenon when he was sitting out his deck one night, and he was kind of wondering, like, is something going to happen? For a while, he noticed nothing except that his motion sensor light started switching on and off for no apparent reason, as well as unexplainable lights in the sky that would shoot in one direction or another.
What?
Yeah. Finally, one night, he was lucky enough to catch a glimpse of the tree shaker. He said he watched in disbelief from inside his house as a 5-foot-tall creature with long hind legs slunk quietly out of a tree and climbed onto his children's playground set. The yard was too dark to make out the details of the creature's appearance, but Bill said that it moved smoothly and naturally and that it seemed very sly. He was sure, however, it wasn't a bat. He said it seemed to resemble the way Gollum would walk on all fours.
Oh, my God.
It had to have been on only about 5 feet tall at most, he said. The eyes didn't glow. The hands and feet looked bigger than normal, and its legs were longer than they should have been.
Wait, hands and feet.
Yeah, so this one's like a little bit different, but all in the same area.
Wings per se.
This one didn't have wings, apparently.
Oh my God. Okay,
so
I missed that. Yeah.
There was the man bat. Then in the same or similar area, there was this other creature that behaved like a bat, and then now there's this thing which is maybe like Gollum.
So when you were saying like a giant, huge creature landed in the tree, I'm thinking, it could be an eagle, could be a bald eagle. Those things are enormous, and they are all around the La Crosse area, as it's right on the river there.
Yeah.
So a giant, those things have like a 6-foot wingspan. They are enormous. And if you saw one of those landing in your tree without, only seeing the shape, I could see how that could freak you out. But no real arms or legs to speak of on most bald eagles. So,
good point.
I don't know.
Shapeshifter here. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say out loud, but again, kind of the same area.
I mean, could it be like an escaped monkey? I mean, I know that's, maybe equally crazy. Maybe not equally crazy, but...
That kind of question did come up in some of the accounts that the writer talked about.
Okay.
Like, well, did a kangaroo disappear from the zoo and then shows up, or what's the scoop?
Jesus.
So what do you say? Hard to say, hard to understand even what's going on there. But let's keep with this theme of winged creatures. Let's talk about the bat squatch.
The bat squatch?
Oh yeah, dude. We're talking cryptids. What do you expect?
I don't know what to expect.
You could have a bat squatch something.
Yeah, a bat squatch
foot.
Thank you.
Mongolian deathworm. That's the beauty of cryptids.
I think about the Mongolian deathworm probably like 3 times a day. I'm not even joking.
I'm right there with you, man.
I'm just like, maybe there's worms under the ground that'll pop up and eat me. I don't know. Like, who knows?
If the president or prime minister of Mongolia is willing to go on the record, which he did, and said he believed in him 100%, then I believe it too.
Yeah.
What can I say?
What else can you say?
But I tell you what. Let's get out of...
The bat squatch.
Yeah, dude.
So we get in the Northwest now?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Let's get out of the upper Midwest. Let's head to the state of Washington. And hey, look, the craziest stuff, besides the cost of housing out there, is perhaps the bizarro cryptid accounts, which, look, I'll say this much, Tim. We had a listener, a dear listener, write in 5, 6, 7 years ago.
That's right.
They were like a Forest Service worker, and they just said, hey, look, I know it sounds ridiculous. I believe that something's out here.
Yeah. Yeah. She was saying, like, I go for drives, and I'm out here. I'm all alone. You get the sense that there is more out there that you can see. She's like, I can't pinpoint it. I can't put my finger on it, but trust me.
Right? So,
okay, I'll take your word for it.
Dear listener, you know who you are, and if you are still listening to the show, write us back and give us an update, because I would love to hear. I mean, that was like a time capsule now. That was like season 1-ish, maybe. So anyway, it's kind of fun to think about. But let's talk about Bat Squatch. What's crazy about Bat Squatch is this one is on point. Let me tell you why. Bat Squatch came to the public's attention first back in 1994 by an article published by the Tacoma, Washington News Tribune. Reporter C.R. Roberts, who still works for the paper, by the way, he's a business columnist, wrote a dramatic account of then 18-year-old Brian Canfield's nighttime encounter with the 9-foot-tall winged creature. Here's what happened. So the teen had been driving home, living in a small community, one Saturday evening about 9:30 p.m. He's driving along. His pickup truck's engine suddenly failed. Mm-hmm. he didn't have time to pull over before his car just stopped, and he couldn't figure out what was going on because basically at this point in time there didn't seem to be a clear mechanical problem. However, at that exact same time, about 30 feet down the road, a huge and horrific being was descending out of the dark sky. It landed hard enough to whomp up a cloud of dust.
It whomped the dust up?
He said, and I'm quoting here, "It was standing there staring at me like it was resting, like it didn't know what to think. I was scared. It raised the hair on me. I didn't feel threatened. I just felt out of place. Its eyes were yellow and shaped like a piece of pie with pupils like a half moon. The mouth was pretty big, white teeth, no fangs. The face was like that of a wolf. It was covered with fur. Apparently the fur kind of looked blue in the color of his headlights, which is odd. So the reporter asked this boy if he had any other sensory impressions during that episode. The boy said he remembered hearing the wind and smelling gasoline from his leaky carburetor as he and the creature stared at each other for several minutes. He said he felt the creature was bewildered and that it didn't mean to hurt him. He said finally the creature looked away and unfolded its giant wings, and the boy was astounded to see that they were at least as wide as the road. Whoa. The creature evidently decided it was time to go. With the turn of its head for a last peek at the boy, it flapped away, and in the process displaced so much air that Canfield's truck rocked back and forth. He sat numbly and watched as it headed for Mount Rainier. Listen to this. Strangely enough, the boy didn't have to send for a tow truck. His engine restarted itself about the time the creature was out of sight.
Not surprised in the least.
Why is that?
Because that happens with Bigfoot sightings. It happens with UFO sightings. I don't know. I don't know if they intend to cause cars to break down or stop. But
mechanical failure of some sort. There's always some disturbance or whatever.
Right. Or a UFO flies over a house and the TV goes all wonky or something like that. But, okay, so I noticed this. He said he heard the wind rustling and he could smell the gasoline.
Yeah.
Which, interestingly enough, tells us that he wasn't really in the Oz factor.
Huh.
Or the what's
Oz
that?
effect.
The Oz effect.
Yeah, where everything goes quiet and silent. The animals stop making noise.
Yeah, it's almost like someone hits pause on the world, essentially. But it seems like, for whatever that's worth, everything kept going on. But so Bat Squatch because he was giant and hairy and had wings.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Let's keep going with this because this actually gets even more interesting, I think. So Roberts, the reporter, followed up with the boy. His last name was Canfield. A few days after the encounter, while the incident was still fresh in the teen's mind. So Roberts, who was the journalist, had talked to the writer of this book about the story just to provide some more facts and details. And he said that he did his own investigation. The kid totally checked out in terms of not being no criminal background, not one for making stuff up, and that the boy absolutely believed it happened. And this sounds funny, too, but he said that the boy Canfield had never seen UFOs before, didn't listen to heavy metal music, which sounds funny, and isn't into role-playing games, but that's significant because apparently, if you're prone to seeing UFOs or you're into certain things, you might have a wild imagination, perhaps.
Perhaps. Sure.
This is what Canfield said, though. This is what the boy said. He said, "It did happen. I'm willing to put my life on it." He said he wished the encounter had never taken place.
Wow.
Well,
love that.
Love that. It's all fine and dandy, except for the fact that another Tacoma area family reported an encounter with a large bat-like creature in July of 2011, and they reported it to the publication The Gate to Strange Phenomena. They said at the time they were living near Tacoma, Washington, and on several acres of mostly tree-covered land with the creek. They had seen and heard a strange nocturnal bat-like creature. This thing is huge, with light gray skin, no fur, feathers, or scales. It silently swoops down at you with giant bat wings. The family noted that the creature made a distinctive sound that they compared to that of a jungle monkey or bird.
Huh.
They dubbed it the monkey bird.
Okay.
It was not as large as the other bat-like creatures that we've discussed so far. However, it's obviously huge, and it sounds kind of similar to perhaps what the boy saw as well.
What?
So it's not just one kid that maybe saw this, and who knows, there might be other accounts out there, too.
There might be more. Yeah, if I saw something like that, I honestly don't know that I would talk about it. I would talk about it because I have this podcast. But I mean, that aside, I think a lot of normal everyday people would just be like, yeah, I'm just going to keep that one to myself.
Yeah. It's probably an eagle.
Right.
I mean, maybe.
Right.
That's what you would say.
What? So maybe there's a giant bat monkey bird that lives in like Mount Rainier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that.
Well, we have listeners out there in the Pacific Northwest. Tell us if you've seen Bat Squatch.
I
hope somebody has.
Please.
I'm into it. So let's keep going here, and let's actually go back to the quote-unquote, huge air quotes here, great
state of Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. That's right. The great state of Wisconsin.
I don't know what's up with like these western cities, too. We're going to freaking Toma, dude.
Toma.
Tell us about your relationship with Toma.
Toma is a city you have to get through between Madison and La Crosse. And there is nothing between there's not even radio stations. Mm-hmm. There's cornfields and culvers, and that's about it.
So, yeah, I mean, small town, not a lot going on there necessarily, except for if you're like me and you like a Culver's sandwich and some cheese curds.
Heck yeah.
Not a bad place to be. This report, though, came in from a woman named Lori Liddell, and the writer of the book, American Monsters, dubbed this the Toma Gargoyle. Side note, doesn't sound anything like a gargoyle.
It was just a cool name.
Yeah. Well, in fairness to the writer of the book, she was kind of categorizing anything that didn't fit cleanly into a category as like a gargoyle.
Okay.
Because that's essentially just kind of a monster.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk about this. This happened May 8th, 2013. So, hey, 10-ish plus years ago or so. Here's what happened. About 9:40 p.m. on a May evening, she said, and I'm quoting here, I heard my dog barking outside like he was scared. So I put on my glasses, opened up the door, and there was a creature that looked very similar to a kangaroo, about 4.5 feet tall, standing on the other side of my car, about 25 feet away from my dog. So I will say, first of all, I don't like kangaroos. Listener Greg, I'm looking squarely at you, pal. We've had an ongoing beef about this and the dangers of kangaroos.
Kangaroos in water, am I right?
Don't go near them.
Okay. Pause, time out.
We'll pause the story.
Was it actually a kangaroo?
I don't think so, because let's keep going with the description here. So she sees this thing kind of on the other side of, it sounds like almost the driveway, okay? She said, I saw the upper body, smaller arms sticking out in front, upper torso, brown colored fur like a deer brown during the heat of summer.
Yep.
Had weird yellow eyes.
Yep.
And it had a bony looking head, kangaroo-like ears, and thinner neck than I would expect. It was not a deer, dog, goat, or anything I can think of. And I don't think it was a kangaroo either. It was unnatural. Like it could be an alien as much as it could be a kangaroo. Very creepy. I looked at it for a minute and decided I need the flashlight. When I returned with my flashlight,
it's gone.
It was gone.
Yeah, of course.
Well, she's been living out basically in the woods her whole life. She knows what the normal animals look like out there. She goes, it wasn't any of those. She kept coming back to the eyes.
Yeah.
And there were two things that really stood out. One is she said the eyes were very slanted.
Okay.
So different than like a rounded eyeball of a deer. Mm-hmm. She also said that the eyes glowed yellow. Like normally when you flash a flashlight outside at night and you see raccoons or deer or something, the eyes reflect like a bright white color.
Yes.
She was saying this thing had straight up yellow eyes.
Weird. Do you think it was a bear with mange?
4 foot tall?
Small bear with mange. I don't know.
I mean,
it would make more sense if it was a kangaroo. What do you know about kangaroos' eyelids? Could it possibly be an escaped kangaroo from the Toma zoo or something?
Perhaps.
What is? It's
okay.
I'm trying to think of logical explanations for each of these.
Well, there ain't none, but perhaps I have one for you.
Okay.
Which I had to do a little off-road investigation here. I actually stepped outside of the book for a few minutes because she hinted at something called the Goat Man.
Okay.
Which actually is Ho Chunk legend or lore or belief system of natives in the area. Mm-hmm. Now tell me if this sounds familiar.
Oh.
But this is according to legend. So Goat Man is half man, half goat. The upper body, a man with horns and sharp fangs. The lower body of a goat with long, stringy red hair.
So like Pan.
It sounds all like Pan, right? Stalks broken down travelers and backroad lovers, brutally mangling his victims and leaving their bodies swinging upside down in the trees like gruesome wind chimes. Ew. The legend of Hogsback Road, not too far from where she is, goes like this. It's believed to be haunted by the Goat Man. Supposedly a man died while on this road, and his soul had not been able to rest. It's also believed that the area is an active occult site, and that the members will not let the man's spirit leave the area. So he now walks the stretch known as Hogsback Road at night, carrying a goat's head to scare people off. Once there, the souls of these people are taunted and desperately try to grab onto the living that come to investigate the area. It's said that the evil energy has also left with people and have taunted them in their own homes as well as they're out there. Even though, so they're out there walking around. Mm-hmm, so basically where I'm going with this is creepy stuff in the area. Some of this relates back to Native American lore. People have been killed in the area, die, and maybe are trapped and take on the appearance of a cryptid or something more sinister.
I'm going to say the kangaroo thing is different than the Goat Man.
Kind of sounds like it, right? But it's all in the same area.
It's all in the same, which is
cryptids.
Crazy. I had no idea that like Western Wisconsin was a hotbed of cryptids.
Dude, I found there's one I'll bring into a Wednesday, Thursday show from Green Bay.
Oh, yeah?
My jaw was on the floor. Stay tuned for an upcoming Wednesday, Thursday show on the topic.
I don't know how that many cryptids could live without people learning about them for so long.
Well, they're clearly seeing them.
Yeah.
But to your point, they're not finding, like, bones of these creatures.
Bones or nests or caves or something.
Yeah.
Anything.
Leave without a trace. Camper's rule.
Take only pictures.
All right. So, folks, you tell us. And if you live in Toma, do tell if you've seen Goat Man or this kangaroo thing. I'd be very curious. Well, let's keep going, folks, because, hey, you know what? We're going to stay in the upper Midwest. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm most at home. That's where I'm comfortable. Let's head to the cornfields of Iowa.
Heard of it?
Let's head to the small town of Van Meter, Iowa. And for those of you playing along at home, it's about an hour west of Des Moines, so kind of a small rural community. The Van Meter visitor chronicled 3 days of mystifying terror when something not quite human paid a visit on the quiet village of Van Meter, Iowa in the early 1900s. The little town with a current population of just over 1,000 souls reached a truly rude awakening in the autumn of 1903 when they discovered something huge and bat-like had crept out of an old abandoned mine shaft and headed where else? Downtown.
Yeah, that's probably where they would go. From a mine shaft.
Dude, check.
Now we're talking.
This is multiple witnesses. Kind of weird. Let's keep going.
1903, huh?
September 29th, 1903, Ulysses Griffith, a local tool and farm implement salesman, returning from a business trip, witnessed a strange, unidentifiable light hop from rooftop to rooftop over the town's business areas at about 1 a.m. He had no way to investigate at the time, and he was tired, so he continued home and went to bed.
Makes sense.
First sighting of something weird. The next evening at about the same time, the town physician, Dr. Alcott, awoke to some bright light shining into his darkened bedroom. The doctor grabbed a firearm and went out to confront what he probably supposed was a burglar. Instead, he was met with the strange form and horrific glare of a classic American gargoyle. The creature stared back at the doctor as half human and half animal, with large, membranous wings and a blunted horn growing out of its forehead.
Whoa.
The doctor shot it 5 times.
Heck yeah.
And at fairly close range, however, the monster seemed unaffected. The monster was as consistent as it was invincible. It appeared a third night on October 1st, again at 1 a.m., to a bank cashier named Clarence Dunn. He headed to the bank to make sure the supposed burglar that had been lurking around town left his place of employment alone. So he's sitting there inside, armed with a shotgun. He heard a strange wheezing noise. And then he saw, very similar to the doctor, these kind of bright lights beaming through the front window of the bank. He could only make out a huge, shadowy figure looming just outside. He shot at it right through the window pane. When he ran to look, there was no dead creature lying around outside. But there was a 3-toed print in the dirt.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and the creature kept going. So this creature kept going. He went on to wake up another businessman who had fallen asleep guarding his store from the second-story apartment. He fired down upon the dark shape when he saw it sitting on a wooden telephone pole on the street below. And like the banker, he believed that he'd hit it. Instead, the creature trained its eerie light straight at him and used its large, hooked beak to help it shimmy down the pole to the ground, where another witness saw it standing there erect, a light beaming from its forehead. The man estimated its height at 8 feet.
Whoa.
The creature then took off, leaping like a kangaroo, while flapping its wings as if trying to take flight.
What?
The creature may have been scared away from the businesses and probably everybody shooting at him, right? Or it. Right. And it headed straight into an old nearby mine shaft. The monster stayed in its underground sanctuary until 1 a.m. on the morning of October 3rd. A group of men working a late-night factory shift in the area heard strange sounds coming from the mine shaft, and they saw not one, but 2 of the creatures exit through the shaft, their lights ablaze. The pair of those cryptids, right? One of them was slightly smaller than the other, took wing and sailed off into the moonlit night. This sight apparently galvanized the whole town. So they're all freaking out. And by the way, electricity was still fairly new, so they're like all coordinating how they're like turning lights on and stuff in the middle of the night. Gathered a gang of men together to basically wait for the creatures to return. And it did. 5:45 the next morning.
Back to the mine shaft?
Back to the mine shaft.
Okay.
As those gargoyles came closer, the men all took aim and fired, but the only response of the creatures was to release a putrid odor that had also been smelled by one of the downtown businessmen that saw it previously, right? Creatures flew back into the mine shaft after apparently avoiding the bullets, were never seen again.
Unbelievable.
So you have like a whole town witness this gargoyle thing. Sounds, well, and I'll get your opinion on this here later, but sounds a little bit like Mothman, perhaps.
It sounds like Mothman, but I want to go through this. So it's 8 feet tall.
8 feet tall.
It shines light out of its eyes or forehead.
It's like a beak that it shines light out.
Well, yeah, then the beak is curved.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing?
Wings.
Oh, yeah, the horn?
Yeah, the horn. Yeah.
Growing out of its forehead?
Yeah. And yeah,
what?
Hops like a kangaroo and then flaps his wings and flies away.
This is like a Mad Lib. This is like a cryptid Mad Lib.
Perfect analogy here.
I don't even know what to think. I mean, is it more believable because it makes no sense and I have absolutely zero like
frame of reference?
Yeah. Or is it crazy because it doesn't look like a Bigfoot or it doesn't look like a Thunderbird or something?
Right.
I don't know, man.
Don't actually know.
You got multiple witnesses.
Yeah.
And credible witnesses.
Right. You have a banker, a doctor, a group of miners or people people working at a factory, I should say, nearby, all laying eyes on this.
So they're all seeing something.
Yeah.
Or the whole town is pulling a prank.
Yeah. What is it? Mass hysteria?
Yeah, right. It's swamp gas, you know. I don't know. I just don't know what to make of that.
I'm 100% with you. And it was written about in the local newspaper and all those things, and that doesn't necessarily make it true, but it's documented. It happened, or something happened.
Something happened, yeah.
Found it interesting that they reported a foul odor.
Yes, which shows up often with Bigfoot Sasquatch sightings.
Bingo. Also, an inability to be taken down by gunfire.
It's like a supernatural power almost.
Right. But I think this is the first time I've heard of these strange, like horns or something that emits a bright light, or whatever that was.
That's
the beak or
wild.
The horn.
Yes, absolutely wild.
Very odd. So a little follow up here in the aftermath. A reporter from the United Kingdom's Daily Mail had gone through and tried to figure out really what happened here, and said that they were trying to get a hold of this plaster to find out whether or not somebody had made a plaster of the three-toed footprint.
Oh, yeah, outside the bank, yeah.
Right, and they did have one. He also said, this writer said, there's no evidence to suggest the monster was a hoax, although maybe the facts may have been embellished over the years.
Sure.
Who's to even say?
I don't know, man. Like a subterranean 8-foot tall flying creature with a horn?
Yeah.
Like none of that really makes sense. Like evolutionarily speaking, you know what? Sure, okay, bats might live underground in a cave, right? But they're small, right?
Yes.
Because caves aren't generally 8 feet in diameter in most places.
Generally, yeah.
Generally. The horn? Like, what's the horn for?
It makes no sense. Just a straight up horn on the forehead.
And just a headlight popping out of their face?
One theory was maybe like because it was in a mine, got some sort of like headlamp thing stuck on it or something like that.
I like that.
But who even knows?
I came into this just ready to laugh at everything. And yes, while I am still laughing, I'm also kind of like, what is this?
This is what had me feeling truly uncomfortable when I was reading this book. Again, it goes back to the ABC thing. Either it's all made up, they're lying.
Yep.
Which at this point, like, there's so many encounters. Well, yeah, that could be a thing.
It could.
So A, it could be all lying. B, could be just mistaken identity. But you have a lot of people seeing these things, people corroborating some similar types of activity in cryptids.
Sure.
Think about the bat squatch, right?
Right.
And then maybe it's real, but we just don't really understand what it is. Interdimensional creatures? I don't know.
Right.
It sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, folks. Let's
Absolutely.
just admit it. That being said, it's fascinating. I got to come back to some more of these cryptids. There's even more that
I am ready for it, actually. Yeah.
We're at that point where it's like, let's get those cryptids back on the show.
Sure, man.
So yeah, folks, if you have any cryptid encounters, I really would love to hear them. If you have, for instance, if you've seen something weird, something you can't explain, put together a voice memo for us. Send it to crackpotpodcast@gmail.com. We'll play it on the show. I'd love to hear it. Or just write us and tell us what you've encountered. It's just fascinating stuff. And let us know. What do you think? You believe in this stuff? You're not sure? Where you at? Because I do.
Jury's out. All right, everybody. Well, hey, thank you so much for listening this week, and thank you so much for all the support that you guys give. If you haven't already, please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your local zoologist about our podcast. Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.